Why, hello there. Good morning. Crazy Dog Wolf with Wolf's Den Forge. Here we are at S&S Knife and Tool, which has been hosting us for the last few weeks. I travel full-time, so I get hosted in various different shops. Anyway, today I want to talk about something that I've alluded to previously, which is hammer technique. Just to give you a little bit of background, I've been swinging a hammer since I've been old enough to hold one, which is over 40 years. My old man raised me to be a carpenter, which obviously I'm not anymore, but I've been swinging a hammer my whole life. I've been swinging a hammer for a living for almost over 30 years now. Actually, it's been over 30 years now. Almost all that which has been in metalwork. So today we're going to talk about a lot of things that people don't think about, and some things that even I learned much later on in life when it comes to hammer technique. How to move metal much more efficiently, and more importantly, how not to hurt yourself, because I see way too many people do it. So anyway, follow along with me and we'll talk a little bit about this and see how it goes. Thanks. Okay guys, one of the first things I want to talk about is hammer selection more than anything else. Most people, especially if they're going to swing a hammer for hours hours and hours a day, are going to want to err on the light side of having a lighter hammer. Much like this is a 3-pound forging hammer, or this one is even 2.5, right? You'll see most people will want to take a lighter hammer because they figure they're going, it's going to be easier for them to swing for a long time. This is not exactly true, and it's actually an easy way to lead yourself towards injury. One of the things I see people doing all the time is if they have a hammer like this, they'll be driving the hell out of it, trying to beat something, right? You're not going to get very much work done that way, and you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to blow your shoulder out, you're going to blow your wrist out, you're going to blow your elbow out doing these things. If you have to drive a hammer that hard, you don't need to drive a hammer that hard. You need a bigger hammer is what you need. That being said, you can get more work done with a lighter hammer, like this one here, but it's not going to be done by driving a hammer like this. If you ever catch yourself doing this or you see somebody else doing it, please, for the love of God, stop, or stop somebody else if you see them doing that. All they're doing is hurt themselves. Put a longer handle on your hammer, right? If you have to swing really hard, take it from the end of the hammer. I can speak English, really, I swear. Take it from the end of the handle, bring your hammer up, bring it down like this. You don't really swing a hammer so much as you drop it. But that being said, you put a little snap into it with your wrist, and you put a lot more force and power into that hammer with very little effort. The way I generally swing a hammer, let's start from gripping a hammer. Let's start from the very basics, gripping a hammer. When I grip a hammer, most of the time I'm not holding it, with a death grip. I'm not squeezing it like this. I'm pretty much holding it like that. I'm not putting a whole lot of grip into it. If I have the rest of my fingers on it, it's just to rest them there. I'm not really squeezing my hammer. You don't need to. Because when I swing, I'm not trying to throw my hammer down onto the anvil. That's just the path of hurting yourself. The next most basic thing is, and a lot of times, if I'm going to go for power, if I'm really going to try and hit it hard, if I'm going for a power stroke, I'm going to grab it farther back on the handle. The easiest way, let me take it step by step here. I'm getting ahead of myself. It's early in the morning. I haven't had very much coffee yet. Starting from the beginning of a hammer stroke, the first thing you do is pick a hammer up. I see a ton of people picking their hammer up like this. That is the quickest way to wear yourself out, quickest way to make yourself tired. The hardest way to pick up anything is pick it up this way. You're all the weight's on the end, and all you're doing is straining your elbow when you're trying to do that. Bring it into your body and pick it up. Same thing with a sledgehammer. Bring it into your body, pick it up. It's much, much easier to do this. On the very first stroke, bring the hammer into your body, pick it up. I'll curl it back, and if I don't touch it or rest it right here, I pretty much have the hammerhead right here over my shoulder. When I bring it down, all I'm really doing is dropping my elbow, right? If you drop your elbow like this, I'm not pulling down and I'm not trying to swing with a great deal of force. I'm just dropping my elbow down. At the last second, I kind of just whip my forearm out and put a little bit of snap in with my wrist. I don't really try to whack it, really try to throw it out there. I just put a little snap in with my wrist. And that bit right there, you can put a great deal of power into a hit just by doing this, right? With not a whole lot of force. When the hammer comes down, you can see how the hammer bounces off the face of the anvil. You're getting a great deal of energy return. The energy is going down to the bottom of the anvil and then reflecting back up and bouncing the hammer right off the face of the anvil. You're going to get a lot of this action as well when you have a piece of steel in there. Of course, some of it's going to be muted because your steel is hot and it's a little on the malleable side, but you're still going to get a lot of return off of it. So at that point, I use the power of the rebound of the anvil picking my hammer up to help me pick my hammer up. I only really pick it up once. I pick it up that first shot. The rest of the time, I'm bouncing my hammer off the anvil. And I know it sounds like I'm really whacking this anvil. I'm really not hitting it that hard. I'm not putting any dents in the face of my anvil, so calm down before anybody starts getting wild in the comments. So, that being said, on the opposite end, if you need more control, then you just choke up a little bit further up on your hammer handle. All of this is a tool that can be used. You don't have to pick one spot and only ever use that one spot. It's just like anything else. You use the parts of the tool that, the parts of the hammer handle that you need for the job at the time. If you're doing fine work that you don't have to hit very hard, choke up on the hammer handle. If you really need some power, step back, grab the end of the hammer, or the end of the handle, and swing it. So this is how you can get a lot more power out of a smaller hammer. But really what you should be doing, and that's just my opinion, so don't tear me up over this. Plenty of master smiths all over the world will tell you the same thing. Use a bigger hammer. You can get a hell of a lot more power, a hell of a lot more work done out of a large hammer than you can a small one. This is a 5.5 pound hammer. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, if I was a big burly guy, I could swing, that does this every day, I could swing a huge hammer too. I can teach little girls how to do this. It's not very difficult. Going back to the same thing as picking up a hammer. Bring the hammer into your body. Pick it up this way. It's much easier, right? You don't have to put a whole lot of power into it. If you're sitting here trying to pick up a hammer like this, you're going to wear yourself out within the first 2 or 3 strokes anyway. You're not going to be able to get much work done. I said stroke. If you pick up a hammer correctly, and you drop a hammer correctly, and let it bounce, and bring it back up, it's much easier that way. You don't have to put a whole lot of physical effort into it. Even if I don't use the rebound of my hand to pick up my hammer, if I just let it come in like this, once the hammerhead comes back to my arm, it's way easier to pick it up this way than it is to, try and hold it up and down like that. So, that's a lot of it right there. It's just the ability to pick up a hammer. Now, since we have a heavier hammerhead, we're going to get a lot more work done with a lot less effort because, like I said, you drop a hammer, you don't really swing it. So you have a lot more mass coming down. If I want to put a snap into it, it takes a lot less to move a lot of metal. I can forge a very, very large piece of steel very quickly this way without putting a whole lot of physical effort in it, without wearing myself out. And that's the important part. So yeah, so what I'm really talking about right now is simple, basic technique of a hammer. We'll get into using various faces of the hammer, fullering, drawing, things like that a little bit later, and probably in a different video. Right now I just want to address the basic use of a hammer. Some of the things not to do. For the love of God, don't ever do this. Sometimes in some of my videos, it may look like I have my hammer, or my thumb on top of the handle of my hammer like this. You'll never catch me dead doing that. Most of the times you see that, I still have a bit of a habit of wanting to guide my handle, so I'll put it up on the side like this, and sometimes you see that. I try not to. It's a bad habit. Whatever you do, don't put your thumb on top of your hammer handle like this, okay? What's happening while you're swinging this hammer, and you have your thumb sitting right on top of here, subconsciously you have a tendency to push down onto the handle. Now that's not really going to hurt your grip very much, but what you're doing is you're transmitting vibration from this hammer handle into your elbow. If you find that you have lots of tennis elbow and your elbow aches and you can't figure out why, get your thumb off your hammer handle, for the love of God. Excuse me, for the love of God. Don't do that. Just get your thumb off the hammer handle. Stop it, please. Another one that drives me nuts. And this is what you see with guys with light little hammers. And you especially see this out of farriers. I don't know what it is with farriers. Bros, what are you doing? Who's teaching you this? You all do it. I see everybody do it. I have a friend of mine who lives right around here as a farrier. She does it too. All of you guys do this. I don't know if they teach you this in farrier school or what, but please stop it. Light little hammers like this, and they always lead with their head. They'll be doing this and whipping their whole body up and down while they're trying to beat something with a hammer. It's like, you're killing yourself. Stop it. Like, my shoulder is hurting watching you. Please stop it. Don't do that. One, get a bigger hammer. Even if you don't have to use a giant monstrous hammer. This here's a little 3-pound hammer. 3-pound rounding hammer, right? 3-pound hammer with a longer handle on it. Use a decent stroke. You can get a hell of a lot more power out of it. Let me find something to abuse here really quick. And I'll get an idea what I'm talking about. Well, this is just a chunk of wood, right? So obviously I'm not going to be, moving any metal on this. But, oh God, here's another one. We'll address this one really quick. I don't know what it is. We see people doing this. with a hammer. Like, stop it, please. Pick it up, put a little wrist action into it, and you can hear, woo, let's throw this around, just with this little bit, helps if I get flat, with this little bit of stroke right here, how much harder I can hit this, as opposed to, you know, doing that, or doing this, or whatever. You know, a little bit, and again, this is all I'm doing holding this hammer. Like, I have it with my index finger and my thumb, mostly with my thumb. Little bit of energy return, picks the hammer back up, put it back down. Start from the shoulder, bring in the elbow a little bit of wrist. You can do this all day long. You can do this all day long with a large hammer. So please stop it with the head whipping. Please stop it with the crazy hammer technique. All you're doing is injuring yourself. This is how you get guys. And I'm not, you know, I'm not trying to be high and mighty. I'm not trying to talk trash about nobody. I don't want to see you guys hurt yourselves. And I watched way too many people hurting themselves. The same reason why these guys will forge for 8, 10, 12, 15 years, injure their shoulders and never be able to pick up a hammer again as long as they live and wonder why. It's because they're using really terrible hammer technique. That's something that's not really addressed very much, you know. Blacksmithing, I've seen basic blacksmithing courses, I've seen blacksmithing schools, I've seen all kinds of stuff that never talk about how to hold a hammer, how to get a good amount of power out of a hammer, and how to not hurt yourself with a hammer. It's actually very easy, but it takes a little bit of thinking and a little bit of practice. It is a little weird sometimes. I'm just going to throw stuff all over the place, don't mind me. It is a little weird sometimes swinging a hammer this way, but it's a hell of a lot more powerful, it's a lot more controllable, and you can do it for a much longer period of time because it doesn't take as much, anywhere near as much energy. And again, if you're going to do delicate work, like if you watched my video on doing silver rings, if you need more control, choke up on the hammer, right? All of this is a tool to be used, right? It's not just one spot, all of it. Use the whole hammer handle, whatever you need it. Most times, you know, I hold this handle right about here, and about 2/3 of the way down from the hammerhead. When I really need to hit something, I'll take a step back from the anvil and I'll have it all the way out by the end of the hammer, and I can whale the hell out of something. If I'm doing fine detail, I can choke up on the hammerhead just like this. So, and I have a tendency to use rounding hammers, round die on this side, flat side on this side. You can move a lot more metal, much quicker that way, I find. Especially if you're using the horn of the anvil, or the bick, as they call it overseas. Round face the hammer, round face the horn. You know, it's like having two fullering dies. You're using two fullering dies at the same time, you can squeeze a piece of metal out very, very quickly. Or using the rounded edge of the square face of your hammer, we round these all off like fullers at different radiuses, against this edge of the anvil. It's like having two very narrow, very, very sharp fullers that you can sit here and drive steel out with against the edge of the anvil. So there's a few basic things you can do, and that's why I like them. They're very versatile. I essentially have 4 peens I can use on this hammer face right here, plus a round face, which I find to be very convenient. Let me grab this one really quick, and I'm going to address something about sledgehammers very quickly. Typical size sledgehammer. What is this, 10 pounds? Yeah, it's a 10 pounder. Same kind of thing with forging hammers. I've watched videos where I've watched guys trying to do this, right, while they're striking for somebody, and it hurts watching it. If you watch people that actually swing a hammer all day, every day for a living, whether they're in the construction trades, or if you go back and watch some of the old black and white blacksmithing videos, there's one about a factory that makes trains, right, and they have a huge giant blacksmith shop. There's a guy in there who swings a sledgehammer all day, every day. His job is a striker in a blacksmith shop. That's all he does. When you watch this guy swing an anvil, or swing a hammer, first of all, he never puts it down. When he's not swinging it, he's holding it like this, which takes very little energy to do so. When he actually goes to swing it, he holds it out this way, and he moves more the handle than anything else and brings the hammerhead down. And instead of trying to lift the hammerhead up like this, he's moving it around using the leverage of the handle to bring the hammerhead back up with very little effort to do it. And you can watch this video of this guy. You can tell he's not tickling that piece of steel. He's beating the absolute snot out of it. And he's not breaking a sweat doing it, you know, because he's using very efficient technique. It's not that he's done it for so many years that the hammer doesn't weigh anything to him anymore. It's still a very heavy hammer. It's that he's using extremely efficient technique to do it. One of the first things you'll see is anybody who picks a hammer up for the first time, before they start a job, is they'll bring it into their body and then pick it up and then strike and then bring it into their body and pick it up and then strike, if they're not using a technique like this. Because it takes much less effort to pick something heavy up close to your body, excuse me, and lift it up, than it does to sit here and try and do this. At that, you have a giant weight on the end of a lever. It's very difficult to pick it up that way. So, anyway, these are just a few of the basic things I wanted to address. We can get much more in depth and in detail later on as far as actual various techniques of moving metal with a hammer later on. So, excuse me while I belch. Coffee coming back. So I hope you learned something. If I missed something, please leave me a comment below and I will address it. If you think I'm a total tool bag, tell me that too. Questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, by all means, please let me know. And if there's something else you'd like to see, if there's something you'd like me to address, let me know and I'll get to it. So I try to make videos as often as humanly possible. Mainly I can only do it when I have the workshop to myself, which is very rare. Right now everybody else is out getting propane and everything, so I have a few minutes to do something like this. And yeah, that's about it. So if you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks, guys.